Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, the UBports Foundation show discussing the development of Ubuntu Touch and our community's questions. This is episode 74, streamed live on April 25th, 2020. My name is Dalton, and joining me this week is Alfred.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing pretty fine, actually. Playing around with Halium. Yeah, makes me feel old, but it's getting. Yeah.
Whenever anyone asks me that, I just say, "Oh, pretty good, considering." These
considering, exactly. ...
Yeah. We have a huge roundup of news and questions to go through. So many that I'm pretty sure we're not going to get through all of them this week. But that's okay. So we'll continue on from here. Let's begin with the Ubuntu Touch OTA-12 release. Release candidate and testing is happening now. Not later, now. You can head over to your nearest Ubuntu Touch device and switch to the RC channel to get what is going to be OTA-12. Hopefully. Ubuntu Touch OTA-12 releases on May 6th in just over a week and a half. Yeah. And it will include many changes to Ubuntu Touch, including the oft talked about removal of scopes, and just everything under the hood has changed, basically. And everything above the hood also looks slightly different.
A little bit.
So it's going to be an exciting update. Things that have happened lately in the past couple of weeks. It is no longer possible to touch the screen while music is playing and the screen is off on some devices. That one was a pain to track down. Good work to Rachanon for doing that. The app drawer has pulled a refresh. The touch keyboard displays when you plug in an external display. I don't know how I broke that, but I did. The launcher and drawer both hide when you push the super key when both are shown. And there were some issues with rendering the VPN settings on tablets. That's all been fixed. Which, as far as we know, almost completely reduces all of the regressions from OTA-11 to OTA-12. Of course, we want to know if there are more, so if you see anything interesting while you're using the OTA-12 release candidates, please let us know. Be really nice. And if you want to learn more, you can head over to ubports.com/blog, where we talk all about the OTA-12 release candidate and call for testing. All right. That is OTA-12. I think everyone would also like to hear about some new Android devices with Android 9 or newer, though.
Exactly. Halium 9 has been taken pretty much let's just say it started to roll pretty quickly in the last 2 weeks. Irfan has released a new GSI, which includes the vibration and LED support. So he's been working on making that a reality. And again, shout out to him for the work that he's been doing. And it turns out that that's not everything, because I've been playing around with the Google Pixel 3a again a little bit, and I've been going through a list of things that was really bugging me. For example, the audio playback through Media Hub is now working, which requires you to patch the kernel with a proper AppArmor that is available from Ubuntu. The video thumbnails in the gallery now are generated correctly. So that's something that just annoyed me when I was scrolling through the list and there was some media not available or thumbnails not generating correctly. That was just bugging me out. The camera also now works. It's using GStreamer Droid. Again, the work that Rachanon has been doing for Halium 7.1 is also paying off for 9.0. It's currently image only though, so you can only take pictures. But I will probably look into that sooner rather than later to get it running with video recording as well. And the biggest one for me personally, because it means hardware enablement, which is very interesting to me personally, is NFC. And it turns out that Volla has done an amazing job of making NFC work on, Hybris and Halium-based systems that use libHybris. And there are two versions of NFC. There's one for older devices, which is PN54X, which means just devices like the Sony Xperia X are able to communicate through NFC now. Ooh. As well as a binder plugin, which means that Halium 9.0 based ports will also be able to make use of NFC connectivity. And it's been working pretty well. It's missing the Debian packaging. It's missing the system settings integration yet, but that is going to come soon, TM.
Not bad.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff you got working.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Xperia X. I think there's something a little similar to that coming down the pipe, too.
Exactly. I think that's time for a little drum roll right there. So the Sony Xperia X Performance is our newest community device in the community channel. So the work that has been put into was both by a person called Liang Xuan and Andreas Pokorny. And they have been working very, very, very hard to make this a reality, but it seems to have paid off. I wish I had this device to play around with it myself, to be honest with you. But it's now available in the UBports installer. And what you should also do is check, if you have the device and you really want to install it, you should check the forum post, because there are some manual steps that you have to do prior to installing the OS on your phone. Mm-hmm. It's similar to what all the other Sony devices require, like the Xperia X, like my port. But as soon as you have as soon as you have followed the steps, you should have a perfectly running Ubuntu Touch on your Xperia X Performance now.
Yeah, and to be clear, that is Xperia X Performance, not Xperia X Compact, and not Xperia XZ.
Exactly, yes.
Its code name is Dora, and it has the model number F8131 or 8132. So you can run it on the F5121?
Yes, and 22.
Or the 8131 and 8132. Xperia X or Xperia X Performance only. Although there is work on those other ones that I mentioned before, but that's not quite there yet.
Yes, and in the same breath, I would like to reach out to other Sony device owners, because what we have we've been working on is, and very hard so, is making sure that all the Sony devices can benefit from each other. So the work that we've put into for the Xperia X and Xperia X Performance should also benefit the other device ports as well. So if anybody out there has a Sony device and wants to make Ubuntu Touch running on it, you just have to reach out to us on Telegram, for example, UBports_porting, and ping it there, and maybe we can work something out, because most of the things is in common repositories, common code, shared across the devices, and it should be very easy. Andreas and I have been talking about this just a few days ago, and we really would like to support as many devices as possible, but we don't have every device to support, though, so we can't test it. We can test it ourselves, and if anybody out there wants to see Ubuntu very badly on his phone, just feel free to reach out to us, and let's see what we can do.
All right. And I think that there were a couple more things that he's been working on, but I'm going to let that I'll let that discovery go to people who want to explore System Image a little bit. Those aren't quite ready to be in the installer yet, but the Xperia X Performance is awesome. And
oh, yes.
I've got the Xperia X. I'll be happy with that for a little while, but the performance looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
In other news, I figured out how to make community channels work. So hooray. If you've got an Helium 7.1 or 5.1 device that builds using Helium devices. Your manifest is in there, and you can, you've got, let's see, other things, UBports recovery for the installer support, and a few other things that I don't remember right now. You can contact me. I should be able to get your device uploaded. And if we have any other questions, we can deal with them when you contact me. And if you don't know my username, you can just head over into @UBports on Telegram and just ask about it. So that was 4 devices that I tried to add this week, and only 1 didn't work. So that's a pretty good number,
That's
75%.
awesome. That is pretty awesome.
All right. And actually, that's the news this week. Let's take a moment to thank them sponsors, huh? So thank you everyone who's helping make Ubuntu Touch possible via PayPal, Patreon, LibraPay, Bitcoin, SEPA Bank wire transactions, and anything else that people are using. It's super. I'm very happy with the response that we've been getting, especially lately. So thank you to everyone who's been helping with that. And thank you to those who are helping us host and build Ubuntu Touch, the compiling, not the human stuff, including Smooth, Private Internet Access, DigitalOcean, and Packet, including the Works on ARM project for Packet. Y'all are making it possible for us to have good infrastructure and let people download things good. To put it in good English. And thank you to our community sponsors on Patreon, including A. Thiel, George Thoma, Guido Horning, James H. Jackson Jr., Laurentine Tillman, Mark Johnston, Max Fielder, Michael Dalemeyer, Milan Iliv, Rena Mirkolev, Thoralf, and Thoralf San. If you'd like to hear me mispronounce your name as well, you can head over to patreon.com/ubports and choose the community sponsor level there. Although we appreciate anything that you are willing to give, or of course, if you are giving us your time, helping us out by testing or whatever it may be that you do in Ubuntu Touch, we also extremely, extremely appreciate that, and thank you. ubports.com/donate for all the other ways that you can donate. Okay. Let's get into some questions. So, we take these questions from our forum over at forums.ubports.com and a few from live chat, but we prefer to put the ones from the forum in first since they got here first. You know, fairness. So first question this week, it's a bit of a long one, comes in from Roger. A while ago, I believe Alan, that's Alan Griffiths, the Mir dev, Mir is not dead, I believe Alan posted, and you guys discussed, that in order for Ubuntu Touch to switch to Wayland, the steps were first to upgrade Mir to a newer version, second, design the missing Wayland protocols to replace any internal Mir protocols that are in use, and finally, migrate internal Mir to Wayland. Now that OTA-12 is soon out, and a newer 1.2, even though 1.8 is out now, Mir is in place, where do you think you're going to go with this project, and where does it rank on priorities? All right, so we have indeed upgraded Mir to a newer version from our list of things that we need to do to upgrade Mir to a newer version. We're running Mir 1.2 now. 1.8 was released. It should only be a rebuild of all of Mir and its dependents to get that working. And on devices like the PinePhone, the Mir client API that's used by older Ubuntu Touch devices, including all the Android devices currently, doesn't work. So on devices like the PinePhone and Raspberry Pi, the Wayland transition happened whether we liked it or not. And that includes that internal nesting protocol that we were talking about before, where Mir client could run a Mir server using Mir client, could run a Mir server using Mir client on top of, We switched that now to using Wayland, so it's a stack of Wayland servers talking to Wayland clients, from the Unity system compositor up to Unity 8, Lomiri. So the internal Nesting protocol has been swapped out on these newer devices like the PinePhone already. But there are still those missing protocol supports. Most importantly is something similar to XDG Foreign, which would allow us to draw a foreign app over the app you're using. That's what we use to do things like show you prompts asking if you want to allow location access. There's a different app running that comes up over the one that you were just trying to use. And that's why neither those trust prompts nor the online accounts features work, because both of them use that same mechanism to work. That's kind of the highest priority. After that, once things are working on the PinePhone and these other newer devices, we will need to consider adding Wayland buffer support to the Android platform for Mir, which basically is just a new driver, works in a new way, works for Wayland instead of Mir client. That's all the details I probably need to go into. So, yes, these are high priority projects because we need to do them for the PinePhone. And getting that working is very important to us at the moment. Okay. Alfred, I think it's just going to be me talking a lot if I read these all. Stan Woods is kind of big. Would you like to read it?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
So Stanwood asks, today more than ever, the items we buy in the shops are called connected items. Suppliers offer an app that allows you to control the operation of the device remotely. Although for most of them, these features are gadgets, the smartphone is gradually becoming a kind of universal remote control to manage all its devices, like electric blinds, remote heating, washing machine, lights, grills, cars, etc. This evolution is now well known as Internet of Things. Of course, applications are only available on Android and iOS. How does Ubuntu Touch position itself regarding this evolution? How to integrate these applications in closed containment method? Will the solution Will the solution go through Andbox, or on the contrary, will our developers, despite the meager available resources, be able to create in the future clone applications that will manage these connected devices? Well, I do think we have something.
Yeah. There's Nemea.
Yeah, right.
Nemea being a platform to harmonize your IoT devices and use them all together.
Yes.
Or the Nemea devices. So you have your home platform built on Nemea, and then there's an Ubuntu Touch client that allows you to connect to your Nemea system and control your smart devices. Alternatively, there are other such solutions like Home Assistant or OpenHab that do a similar thing, where it's not your phone that's controlling all the devices anymore. It's your server running Home Assistant or OpenHab or Nemea. And I think for our audience especially, that's probably where people are going to be anyway, since I've seen a lot of people who want to integrate in all these different platforms, including Google Home devices and the A-Word devices and Apple HomeKit devices all in one place. They'd go to Home Assistant or one of the similar technologies for that. And then instead of your Android phone controlling the devices, it's your server, and then you can connect to the server via even a web browser or a special client. And since Home Assistant and similar are open source, it means that there are a lot of clients available to take advantage of their open APIs that work correctly, unlike some of the platform vendors. Not throwing shade or anything. So, no, I don't think the solution for that would go through Andbox, nor would it cut into a lot of meager available resources or have trouble with confinement, indeed, since it would be your server doing it instead of your phone. All right. Imi-chan asks, what are your plans for Ubuntu Touch OTA-13? Merge everything that's still waiting from OTA-12. as well as fix any bugs that do come up with the wider testing that comes from the release of OTA-12. We actually have about 130 pull requests open in the organization now. And I remember when I was happy to get that down to 95 a couple months ago. There's a lot of work waiting to get into Ubuntu Touch right now. And to anyone who's authored those PRs, I'm sorry. We've been trying to get through this as quickly as we can. And right now we're in freeze, and we had to switch over to actually completing the update. So thank you everyone for your patience on that. But just with those PRs that are waiting, there are things like upgrading Qt Web Engine to 5.14, which is Chromium 70 something ish, and upgrading the Morph browser itself to take advantage of that and other features in Morph browser. And that's just talking about the browser. There's also things for other apps and system settings and oof.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot that's just waiting for us to review and merge it at the moment. So there'll be no shortage of new things in OTA-13, even despite the fact that we'll be working on the PinePhone and other mainline devices probably for most of the cycle. Awesome question. Thanks. There are several PinePhone questions. Alfred, do you want to rapid fire these?
All right. So about the PinePhone, what kernel version is used by Ubuntu Touch?
5.6.
5.6, exactly. Will it be updated more often than other devices, those dependent on Android drivers?
Okay, so there are two things there. Eventually, the PinePhone will have the same release cadence as all the other devices. It'll release on the OTA cycles just like everything else. But for now, it'll need to have its own release cycle separate because it has so much different that just isn't in common with all the others. So more often, the kernel will be updated more often for sure. The device image itself will probably also be for a time. But eventually, the idea is to have the user-facing updates, the OTAs, coming on the same cadence for all devices. But the kernel, yeah, that's going to update more often because every mainline kernel is getting more hardware enablement for the A64 contained in the PinePhone and all the other hardware too. So it's been awesome to see. Did somebody say PinePhone? Yes. All right. Hit it.
All right, so Swizzler asks the question, will the new PinePhone/PineTab ports have the same limitations as the Nexus 5 and other devices, or will those ports feel more like real GNU/Linux? The read-only file system and not having basic things installed like GCC or being able to just apt-get the useful packages in a convenient way is really annoying, especially when the real Linux in my pocket idea is what drew me to Ubuntu Touch. The libertine, truth stuff seems to only work best on paper. Well, I think it's arguable whether GCC is some basic need, fulfilling some basic need for a smartphone, just as well as apt-get, considering that many of the things that apt-get and GCC provide are more for, server or desktop audience, not necessarily for a smartphone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are people who would want these things on their phone to compile apps. Yeah, to compile apps. And of course, that's what Libertine and similar technologies that we have are for. So for those use cases, if Libertine is not acceptable, then Libertine needs to be fixed, not the entire design of Ubuntu Touch. So the real Linux in your pocket, I'm sorry, if you class real Linux as Arch Linux, we're not going to quite do that for you. Yeah. You might be looking for another option, or we can try and fix Libertine together. All right. Yan Escape. I'm going with Yan Escape. Says, The version of Ubuntu in Ubuntu Touch is 16.04 right now. Will we go to 20.04 in a newer version of Ubuntu Touch? Yeah. Yep.
It's pretty much the plan.
Yeah. We've been talking about things like this for a while. It won't be easy. We might be dropping devices when we do it, but we'll let you know before that happens. All right.
So, WD Hog, or what's his name again? I'm pretty
Willem.
sure. Willem,
Pretty
yeah,
sure it's
right.
Willem.
Exactly. Asks, when should one add an issue to the specific package and when to the global issue repo? For example, I want MediaHub to use embedded album art present in audio streams. Should this issue be added to MediaHub or Ubuntu Touch?
Technically, I suppose it would go on MediaHub. It wouldn't be the worst if it went on Ubuntu Touch, though. It's not exactly the best bug tracking situation that there can be so many places for something to go, but if something ends up on Ubuntu Touch, we can move it into a more appropriate repository. So it's all right wherever you prefer. GT wrote, can you explain a bit about the plans for Ubuntu Touch on the Volla Phone and how UBports is cooperating with HoloWhelp System, UG, and what priority Volla Phone has for UBports? I pre-ordered a Volla Phone because I like the approach and their support for open systems. Thank you. They seem to be very ambitious to build a good Ubuntu Touch experience on their phone and aim to provide Android apps via Andbox. So, having worked with the people behind the Volla Phone now, I can say, yeah, they're very excited about Ubuntu Touch. They're sponsoring the work that they're getting done on the phone. So that work is going on to make all the other devices better. That's the important thing that we can talk about there. The priority they have for us is we're helping them to do this the open source way, the community way, the way that they want to do it, and the way that we think that our community would want to see us do it. Of course, they have final say, but between the people who they've sponsored to work on the project and all of my dealings with them so far, they've been awesome and amazing to work with. And that's not just me saying that because they're paying the UBports Foundation. That's genuinely what's going on. And yes, it's much different than some other vendors because they want to ship with Ubuntu Touch rather than just have it as an option. So, very cool partner. Very awesome people.
All right. Pi1024E asks, where can one buy a Ubuntu Touch tablet and phone now in 2020? Where do we find it? Question mark.
Well, if you'd like to get the PinePhone, you can head over to store.pine64.org. And if you'd like to get yourself a Volla Phone, you can go to volla.online. I believe this person was more interested in the tablet, though, for which the answer will, at some point in the future, be the Pine64 Pine Tab, which is a little on the back burner due to the PinePhone's release, but should be coming back around soon. And for more information on that, you can head over to pine64.org on their blog. It's mentioned in every community update every month. So if you want to learn more about the Pine Tab, that'd be the place to do it. Otherwise, Volla.online, I just said they're pretty cool people. Them's good people. You can pick up a Volla Phone there. All right. From the forum this week, Suko asks, when a device gets official support from the UBports installer, will it receive official OTA updates? Most port devices require a manual update at the moment, and I experienced it during this month. Is it possible to make it clearer the way to make flashable zips and possibly let install them via Ubuntu Touch by instructing Twerp to do it? And have you... Oh, yeah. We should answer that one first.
Yeah. The problem with the flashable zip files is that the official way of providing OTA updates is via the system image server. and it requires special functionality in the recovery, which Dwarp does not provide by itself, which would have to be added by somebody. And at that point, if you need a custom modified recovery, you can just as well install it via the UBports installer and install the recovery manually, maybe even. But yeah, basically, yeah, it's basically it.
Things that get community channels are built automatically, so
Yeah,
that's the way to go.
exactly.
Get us building your software for you, then you don't need to host it yourself either.
Exactly.
And then the second question, have you ever thought of supporting a series of Android phones? Let's say the Galaxy A series, the Redmi A series, Realme branded phones or whatever. Let's say you focus on the Redmi A series, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A. You have very low-cost new devices to offer, well below their $100 target price, perfect for developing and exploring, which would still have an Android dual boot. There's a lot loaded into that question. First of all, we don't currently support a dual boot solution for Android. The cheap devices that you're talking about, and I think your question is just if we would support a cheap phone. The devices you're talking about usually don't have an unlockable bootloader or Android or kernel source provided. And they don't usually have support from Lineage OS or anything like that because they're throwaway phones. They're meant for you to buy them and in a year or less throw them away for a different phone. So they don't last very long in anyone's hands. Honestly, I'd say that if you're looking for a cheap device, pick up something used, or indeed pick up one of the new devices that are coming up, including the PinePhone or the Volla Phone, depending on what your price range is. Because if you want to get one of these really cheap devices, you're probably in for a world of pain.
Oh, yes.
And if they're not interested, if the company that's making the phone isn't interested in having custom software on their phone, there's not much we can do about it, to be honest. And if we were to support a whole series of phones, it would need some initiative from either a lot of people with those phones or the manufacturer themselves.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, what we're trying to get to with the Sony devices is pretty much like he's describing here, because we do really want to support as many Sony devices as possible. At least some people in the community want to. And we just don't have the resources nor the devices to support everything by ourselves. And we should not release something when we cannot test them ourselves, test the software on it, etc. So if anybody out there wants to help us out with Sony devices especially, feel free to contact me on UBports _porting, and maybe we can work something out this way. Yeah.
For sure. Maybe that'll help. To all the people who are currently mentioning a device that they want us to port in the live chat, thank you. If you would like to learn about porting Ubuntu Touch to your device, you can head over to docs.halium.org, where you'll find the porting information, or join the @Halium group on Telegram. Now, there were a couple of questions that were here before we even started today, so I think it's fair to let them speak. Premier Prep asks, what is the status or plans for Android app emulation and installation? It's not exactly emulation, but it's okay. Android app support is currently provided through Andbox, which is a container running Android on top of Ubuntu Touch. And then we proxy through hardware and proxy graphics back. It's not terribly fast, it's not terribly stable, and it uses a lot of battery right now, but it's the option. There are people interested in making it better, And in those cases, they'll probably get what they want, especially if they're willing to sponsor or do the work to make Anbox better. Especially, that's good for everyone, including the people outside of Ubuntu Touch who use Anbox. If we can do things like improve the graphics pipeline so that rendering is faster. There will be some limitations that we may never get around, like the Google apps or safety net or things like that. But for some basic needs, it should work out until we can get native apps for all those things. Or if people can use the website. Otherwise, if there's like that one banking app, some TAN app that you need that uses Google push notifications in order to give you what you need, you might consider buying one of those supermarket Android phones that just has Google Play and a ton of spyware on it, and just booting that up whenever you need it. It's not a great option, but it'll be better than waiting for Anbox or trying to install Google Play services on it, I suspect. Isaac Nix asks us, when are Crust and camera support coming to the PinePhone daily builds so that we can test on our Bravehearts? Soon, TM, or something like that. Whenever the work for these things is ready, they get released into the image, so you'll know when the work is ready. Otherwise, the most important thing for us right now is getting update support out so that, people can update their PinePhone just like they update all the other phones and get all these new things without needing to reflash all the time. The plan indeed is to get the PinePhone to update just like everything else with system image, which will be done by going to system settings and then going to updates, waiting for it to download, and hitting install. It'll reboot into recovery and do it for you. Currently, we're using Jump Drive as our recovery, and it's working pretty well. That was a great solution, Jump Drive. But other than just being our recovery, it also allows you to plug in your device to a desktop or laptop and flash it from there. So it's a pretty cool thing. Highly recommend it. Especially if you want to flash Ubuntu Touch to your internal storage. You can have the SD card for Jump Drive and just insert that whenever you need to flash a new build. You will, of course, still lose your data. So that's something that we're trying to avoid with the update solution. Okay. Alfred, do you see anything else or anything else you want to bring up?
Not really.
Okay. I'm just looking through live chat still. Nicholas Fella asks, how's the Qt upgrade going? Ha!
Ah!
It's going. Yeah.
I mean, some
There's a lot of
components
things,
some components of Qt are getting upgraded independently. So Qt Web Engine, for example. Not everything of Qt, but yeah, I think that's something for a different OTA, definitely.
With the PinePhone having a more up-to-date kernel, will features such as WireGuard be featured in the GUI, or will those kinds of things be held back because of older kernel phones? Of course, we'd prefer to have things that we can support on all of our phones, but if someone wanted to make WireGuard work on the PinePhone and got all the proper packages installed and everything like that, sure, that'd work. Because the PinePhone can have separate software from other images for the moment. Otherwise, the older devices run kernels as old as 3.4. I don't think WireGuard was backported quite that far.
No.
So until those kinds of things get resolved, it might not be the best solution, but we'll see. Whatever someone wants to work on, I guess. Can I install Emacs? Use try out Libertine. It'll do what you need. Or at least it should. And if it doesn't, it's a bug. Wayne asks, how hard is this going to be to edit? Very. Tiger Pro asks, is Marius going to start reaching out to the porters ready to go in the installer in the near future? As I said earlier, Tiger Pro, contact me. I figured out how to make the community channels work. And if I want to port a GTK Pure OS to Ubuntu Touch, what should I look into? Click packaging. You'll need to include all of the dependencies of your application along with it. But you can load libraries from your Click folder as you launch the app. It won't be the easiest thing, but once one person does it, it should be easier for more people. And of course, we are in the future looking to use technologies like Snap or Flatpak, just not yet. Is Canonical providing any support on these efforts in any way? Yes, they made the darn thing. They hired hundreds of people and spent countless hours making Ubuntu Touch possible. So, absolutely. The Mir team is still hired by Canonical, so Mir's
not dead?
Mir's not dead. It's still made by Canonical, and it's still very useful to us. And yes, plenty of things. To everyone who's saying that they've just ordered a phone, a PinePhone, a Volla Phone, or an Nexus 5, thank you. Glad to have you on board. Welcome. But that should about do it. After this show, we do have an after party where we'll be featured and talking to you. Find us in @UBports on Telegram for more information about that. Otherwise, we've got all types of social networks, which I am currently trying to get to so that I can read off, including webpage load, Facebook, Twitter, PixelFed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Diaspora. Or if you want to get our news in your chat client, you can find us on Matrix or Telegram. If you want to chat with us, you can find us on Matrix or Telegram @UBports or #UBports, whatever is correct for that. Or if you want some longer form content, you can head over to forums.ubports.com. We appreciate having you and love talking to you. So, other than that, again, huge thank you to everyone for watching this week. Thank you to all of our sponsors and everyone I've mentioned. Pine64, you guys are cool. Volla, you guys are cool. It's been a ride. And anywhere you want to plug, Alfred?
If you want to follow me on Twitter or contact me on Telegram, it's fredl.me. That's FREDL.me. I do not use Twitter much these days, but I sure do like me some increased follow account. Also fredl.me, that's the website. You can find more projects that I'm working on there. And yeah, where can people find you, Dalton?
I'm @UniversalSuperbox on Telegram. Removed all the E's to get under the character limit. Otherwise, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.